here. Okay. Emma, are they all in?
Dr. Whitworth, I think you can go ahead and get started, and we'll probably have students still join us, but feel free to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for being here. We have an exciting hour for you. We have 4 wonderful panelists that will be sharing information about their particular nonprofit organization and how they actually found their position. They're going to talk about their experiences, but also what kind of skills as a student you need to be developing if you're interested in the nonprofit sector, and also skills and experiences. And then they're going to give you some advice on what you should be doing. So it's going to be very practical. And so I'm glad all of you are here, students, and we hope to have some time at the very end for you to ask questions. And so let's just jump right in. And I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. We have a wide variety of non-sector organizations, from faith-based to actually nationally based, to those that are in Fort Worth, Tarrant County. So a very broad and diverse sector here. So let's start, and let's begin with Ashley. And then we will, I'll tell you what, let's just go from Ashley to May to Amy and Jordan. And if you'll just introduce yourself briefly, and then quickly tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks everybody for having me. I am a class of 2002, very proud Horned Frog. I'm happy to say both my 3- and 6-year-old know how to say rah rah TCU, and they know not to bother me during Saturday football games. But so I loved my time at TCU. It was absolutely wonderful. And I was an advertising and PR major with an area of emphasis in marketing. And I now work on the fundraising team for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And what St. Jude does is we treat and research life-threatening childhood diseases. And there's 2 big pieces of what we do. So our families on the treatment side, they never receive a bill, not only for their treatment, but also for their travel, their housing, their food, because we really want them to focus on getting their child better. We want to take away any burden that we can from them. And then on the research side of things, our doctors and researchers are doing some really great things and they freely share their research. And the goal is that anytime we find a better treatment or a cure, that we're able to share that, so that no matter where the child is, even if they're not on our campus, they're still getting the best medicines possible.
Hi, I'm May Ferguson, and I'm President and CEO of Fort Worth Sister Cities International. I'm also Protocol Officer for the City of Fort Worth, and then the Texas State Representative for our national office, Sister Cities International. And I did not go to TCU, but I'm married to a proud TCU graduate. So I love the campus and all that we, even as an organization, do with TCU. The mission of Fort Worth Sister Cities International is to promote Fort Worth globally and to enrich our local community through international education, exchanges, and commerce. And I know that's a lot of words, but what we do, and I tell people, we were started in 1956, our national organization by Eisenhower after World War II, in an effort to create a more peaceful world. And our programs are designed to create culturally competent individuals. And I mean, what better way than to sit across the table with someone at a meal or coffee to get to know them. If you do that, then you're far less likely to go to war in the future. So there are programs from small children to adults and all ages that create that cultural competency. And I see someone shaking their head. Miranda White has been involved in our program. So good to see you, Miranda. Thank y'all for having me.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Hebditch and I serve as the Executive Vice President of People, Culture, and Programs at Tarrant Area Food Bank. I am a Horned Frog class of 93 and just such an honor to be part of this panel today. We are an essential employer right now due to COVID, so a lot of things have changed in the food banking world. My role currently, I've been on board here for 10 years and oversee all of our human resource functions, which means I do all of the recruiting for the organization. And I also oversee our programmatic and cultural activities. Programs include our community gardens and our culinary training program. And our mission is to alleviate hunger in our communities we serve. We do serve a broad region. It's 13 counties. It's a misnomer. A lot of people call us Tarrant County Food Bank, but we actually do serve over 10,000 square miles. And we have seen an increase in need when COVID first started of about 63% increase in need, all first-time clients to food banking. So it's a very humbling career path and just happy to be a part of it.
Everyone, I'm Jordan McKenna, and I am the Purchase Director of Aftercare at the Net Fort Worth, which is a local nonprofit here in Fort Worth. I'm also a Horned Frog. I graduated in 2014 and started working at the Net in 2015. So what we do at the Net, our mission is to restore dignity and worth to people in poverty through community and relationship. And we serve three primary populations. We serve people experiencing homelessness, we serve refugee kiddos, and then the program that I run is for women and girls who experience sexual exploitation, specifically sex trafficking, here locally in Tarrant County. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We do jail outreach. We work with a probation program through Tarrant County Court 9 called the RISE program. We also have a weekly support group. And then we also have a program to combat the demand for sex trafficking through our MACE program, which is Men Against Sexual Exploitation, who focus on disrupting buyers who are trying to purchase women and girls for sex here in Tarrant County.
Right. Thank you very much, panelists, and thank you for taking time out of your day to share this information with our students. And now the question is, how did you get to where you are today? When you were seated in a college classroom, your sophomore, junior year, did you think you would end up in a non-sector industry, a position? How did you get to where you are today, and why did you choose this particular industry? And let's just go in reverse order. So we'll start with Jordan.
So no, I did not think I was going to end up in this work. I originally came to TCU studying psychology and child development, which I ended up graduating with a degree in. But my plan was to become a psychologist and a trained counselor. However, my senior year, I had one of those, if anybody's a senior in here, you're there or about to be there, where you have this like, what am I doing with my life moment? And so I decided to change my entire career path and use psychology PhD program, where I studied in Dr. David Cross and Dr. Karen Purvis's child development lab at the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development, which I did for a year. Was become a researcher studying developmental trauma. However, that was actually during the time that, if anybody's familiar with Karen Purvis, she got diagnosed with cancer. And so I was unable to continue to work in that lab. And then there was a couple other things in my whole life that ended up making it so I could finish grad school. But then I was like, oh, well, I know I care about people. I care about people who come from hard places. I want to be an advocate for people who come from hard places. I want to be a voice for those people because especially in the classroom, I mean, at TCU, sometimes we can be like anything in life, be in a bubble. I was not exposed to a lot of diversity, especially in regards to socioeconomic diversity, around people in poverty. My entire life, I come from a very affluent area and then came to TCU, which we are blessed in a lot of different ways coming to TCU. And so I had just learned that there are a lot of people out there who come from hard places, and that affects their life, their trajectory in life. And I also realized the importance of relationship and how attachment and relationships can radically transform a person's life and change the trajectory of their life. And so what I found was that with being equipped with some that I learned at TC as well as being out in the field, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later, that I wanted to be with people who come from hard places and walk alongside them in their journey towards recovery. And so I found the net and I was like, this is what I want to be, and have been there ever since.
I think I'm next. I started at TCU at age 17 and graduated at 21, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I changed my major 7 times. It was exhausting for both myself and my parents. I started off as a journalism major and ended up with a degree and a major and a minor that no longer exists at TCU. I have a degree in fashion promotion. It's a BA degree. And I have a minor in advertising and public relations, which I think does still exist, but it's now called strategic communications. And I just really struggled. I was very immature and had no idea what I wanted to do, except other than the fact that I did want to help people. And so I started with Tarrant Area Food Bank as a volunteer. And I was a volunteer for 2 years prior to joining the mission in a paid position, and have started off part-time and started off as a training and development specialist. I did quickly figure out I worked for Neiman Marcus as a buyer when I graduated from college in downtown Dallas, and decided that was not the path for me. And I went into human resources because I wanted to help people. And in my spare time, I volunteered and fell in love with this mission. Food insecurity is something that nobody should ever have to undergo, and I wanted to make a difference. So volunteered here in my spare time, ended up getting married and moving to Fort Worth and starting a family, and I've been here ever since. It's been a wonderful mission. And our executive team. So I have served from the very basic volunteer up through part-time position, up through management, directorship, and now executive. Been wonderful.
Okay, I'm like everyone else probably on the screen in that in school I had majoring in business, thinking I was going on to law school after college, and decided to early on to get married. And with my husband was in the service, we moved to Italy, and I don't know if that's where I first got my bug for international work, but upon returning, I decided to volunteer for the I was in the junior league, and if any of you have the opportunity to be part of the junior league, they have wonderful training for volunteers, project management, fundraising, those kinds of things, and I loved all that, and of course that added to my education. And I was from that junior league experience and volunteering we had a volunteer center. I lived at the time in Longview, Texas. And they hired me to be their executive director because I had been doing the books as a volunteer for them. So like Amy, volunteer work is great entree into any kind of field that you're interested in. And after moving to Fort Worth, I was hired by the American Heart Association. And that led on to the Child Study Center Foundation as vice president, now as president of Fort Worth Sister Cities International. But I will tell you though, the volunteer work is extremely important if you are interested in any kind of nonprofit. I don't know if you heard me talking a little bit earlier, at Sister Cities, hire many interns in our office. We've got a very, very small staff of only 4 now, but we probably within a year's time have 20 interns that are just the backbone of our organization. And one of our interns is currently now on staff. So she even was a student early on prior to the volunteering for us. So that's a wonderful way to get into any kind of organization. And I would, if there's even, regardless of what your interest is, it may change. You may think you are going to be a lawyer like I did, but after being around lawyers, I didn't like that so much anymore. And I think like Jordan and Amy both have said, it's that the nonprofits get in your blood. I took a 1-year stint and worked for a large corporation, and I did not like it. It is, find your passion. If it is something that gets into your blood, if you enjoy it, you're going to be successful at it, and it will show. And I've been with Sister Cities now. I'm in my 21st year, and I love what I do, and it changes every day. So to me, that is just number one. And if you can do that, I think you will be happy and successful in your career.
Wonderful. Well, I don't know that my entry into nonprofit is much of a different story than everyone else here. So it actually started at TCU. I mean, my whole life I had been involved in philanthropy in high school and college, through different organizations. And then I'm a member of Sigma Kappa, and through Panhellenic, I heard about this new fundraising event that was coming to campus called Up Till Dawn. And I was intrigued just because it was a way to help. And I had always done that kind of on the side, never really thinking it could be a career. But I did get involved on the planning committee as a sophomore, and I got to visit St. Jude, the actual campus, when I was a junior. And it was the biggest life-changing moment I've ever had. I thought I was going to go to an ad agency and, do ad work. I had an internship at a local agency in Fort Worth during college, and I really liked it. And I stayed in contact with the rep that I worked with. And then about a year after graduation, I got to come on full time as a staff person, and that was in our Dallas office. And I have moved around a little bit with the organization. I have been in Charlotte, and now I'm in Atlanta, and that is one of the, as Kim said earlier, it's one of the great things that I get to be a part of this with the situation that's going on, look for our silver linings. But it was, I think it was May who said that, it gets in your blood. I'm so passionate about the work that St. Jude is doing. And there are so many amazing nonprofits out there. And I think that's the important thing. It's, even if this is not the career path that you end up going in, still, it is so important for you to be involved in your community, to participate in what is happening. There are social needs, there are physical needs, there are emotional needs that people in your community have, and you can be a part of providing that for them. And you'll be so surprised at what you get back from that. So anyway, so I did start entry level, and I have stayed in my same division. And so it is the field and experiential division of the fundraising group, and really enjoyed everything I've gotten to do. I've been able to work up into the management, and now I am the executive director of the Southeast. And I'm lucky in some ways. St. Jude is a very large organization, and I've been able to experience a lot because of it. We have amazing leaders who have helped drive our strategy, and I've gotten to see how you start with a strategy and how it has developed over the years. And I've gotten to see, you know, a lot of things in social media and in just really creative and talented graphic designers. There's so many things that go into a nonprofit, and we're always looking for people who can donate their talents to us. And I know everybody on this panel is. We are always having to do more with less, and so it's just been really exciting, and it's really pushed me to grow in a lot of ways. You know, I learn from my new team members that are just out of college, and I learn from my CEO, who is still luckily for me, a few years my senior. And it's just been, I encourage you to always continue to learn from everybody around you, because you should always be learning in your career.
Hey, thank you. Students, are you hearing a common thread? And that is, they're all passionate about what they're doing, and it brings meaning to their lives. And that is so important. Now, I want to put a quick plug in for Kim and the TCU Career Services and Kara, and that is informational interviews. And that's where you interview someone in the community, or it could be anywhere now with Zoom, and you ask questions. And one of the questions that normally you ask on an informational interview is, tell me about your typical day. And that gives you a lot of insight into what they're doing. Are they at the office, at a desk all day? Are they out and about, meeting and greeting people? And it gives you a sense of what they're doing in their role. So I'd like to ask our panelists, what's a typical day like for you? And then also the second part of that is, what are the entry-level positions? Because these students are not going to be doing what you're doing, because you're at the upper level, managerial level. So what would they be doing if they came into a position possibly in your organization? Okay, and let's just let's start with May this time.
Well, I'm not going to talk about what my typical day is like in the current situation, because I think we're all, in a certainly a different way of doing business. Sister Cities is located downtown in City Hall, and Fort Worth has 9 international partners around the world. So my typical day could be anything from being called into the mayor's office to brief her on a visitor coming to town from Kazakhstan, and how to greet them, and what's the protocol associated with that particular meeting. And then I may be running to a fundraising call. All nonprofits, I know all 4 of us probably are. If you don't know how to raise money, you shouldn't be a nonprofit in most instances, because everybody is involved in fundraising. We get 4% of our funding from a contract from the city, and the rest of it we have to raise ourselves. So I may be going and meeting with the president of a bank and trying to convince him or her that this is a worthwhile organization to support and be part of. And then I may go to a launch for a board meeting. Our board meetings are normally at noontime, where I've got a 50-person board of directors that I've already organized all morning, and with a small staff of 4, we're all involved putting the packets together at some point, making sure all the name tags out and everything like that. I may be president and CEO, but I run that copy machine and make the coffee and answer the phone if we have to. That's just the way it is in any kind of small nonprofit. The afternoon may be back to the office preparing for another presentation, teaching a class. I teach cultural competency and protocol training to businesses and organizations in the community. And I may be preparing for a phone call I've got to have at 9 o'clock that night, because our sister cities are all over the world. So we have to be prepared to work at different times. In fact, we have, I had a call Friday night at 6:30 p.m. with our largest donor who is in Nagaoka, Japan. And it was 6:30 p.m. It was 6:30 p.m. my time. It was 8:30 a.m. the next day in Japan. So it's, dealing with those kinds of things. But then, the next day I may be in the office the entire day just catching up on everything that has transpired within the day before, and packing, because I lead a lot of the delegations to our sister cities and beyond. We probably do 60 to 70 trips every year, whether it's students or adults. So that's why I love my job as well. It's never the same. There's there's aspects to any job that are routine. You have to take care of it, but things just pop up, and you just never know in this job. And you asked about entry level, and I kind of touched on that about interns. Interns to me are entry level. Our interns have gone on to be receptionists in our office, to program managers, and I call them project managers. They're not interns, they're project managers, because they aren't in the office just to stuff envelopes or run errands. We give them a project so that they're learning as they go. We've got an open door policy, so people are in and out all the time. Are we on track? What else do you need to know? You're dealing with international cultures. Let's make sure, we're doing X, Y, Z and being available. So that's a great way to, I think, let interns experience a day-to-day life, because my life may look glorious and glamorous, and I travel the world. It's hard work, and it's, those are only few and far between. So you've got to be able to do a little bit of everything in our organization. And I have a feeling everybody else is going to say a little something similar to that.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yes, yes, I think we will all say something very similar to that. And so kind of where I am now is I really help lead the strategy for the Southeast. And a lot of that comes in engaging our donors and our partners in different ways, through events, through major gifts, through naming opportunities. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways that people can come into the St. Jude family, into the donors. And when you start in the entry level, now there are dozens of different entry level positions. Once again, it's because I'm with a larger organization, because like we do have an accounting department, we have an IT department, and granted they're small and they cover all of us nationwide. But we do have a lot of those different things. But if you're talking about where I, kind of my experiences as in the entry level, I was focused on the fundraising events. So I was very outward facing, and I still am very outward facing, thinking about my typical day. Very similar to me. I'm out of the office about 50% of the time, and my travel is mostly in Georgia and Alabama. And so it's not necessarily as glamorous. But as I saw everybody shaking their head, like, even if it sounds glamorous, if you're going to New York, you're going to Paris, it's hard because you're not at home, you're not with your family. It can be hard to travel, but it's also really rewarding too. So like I said, I'm typically out of the office about 50% of the time, meeting with people, talking with people, trying to find a way to get them plugged into what we're doing. And then, sorry, I kind of rerouted my answer. Going back to the entry level, that was really focused on events. And we have a couple different programs, if you will. We have our core programs, and that's fundraising events that can really be duplicated no matter what market you're in. And that's really where I started working in. So for example, a radiothon. You can have a radiothon in the tiniest little town in Texas all the way up to New York City, and that's where the talent on air is saying call in and make a pledge. But then you have these specialized events, like a black tie gala. Yes, the core of a black tie gala is going to be the same no matter where you are, but you really get to personalize it to the market you're in, to the people that are attending. And so that's really where I started. But like I said, there's so many different opportunities to get in, if it's through HR, which obviously we have a great representative here for that. If it's through the fundraising side of it, there's lots of different ways to come into the nonprofit sector.
Thank you. Jordan?
So again, similar. My days never look the same, but I'm going to break it up into my glamorous side of my job and then the foundational bits that make the glamorous stuff possible, right? So again, if you look at my job, again, I work with victims of sex trafficking, which again, if you have a passion for sex trafficking, that's like a dream job because lots of people want to work with victims, which is a wonderful opportunity, but also, as you can imagine, extremely difficult. So about 3 times a week, I go to the Tarrant County Jail and meet with women there. I also teach a class at the Tarrant County Jail through the reentry program. We do jail outreach. So we, and a group of volunteers, go and meet with women. We have a great relationship with the Tarrant County Jail, and they will give us a list of women who are currently incarcerated for prostitution or have a history of prostitution. And without going into the long details, but at the net, because of research and just our understanding of trauma, we use victims who are victims of sex trafficking and women in prostitution as the same, because the average age of entry into the sex industry in the United States is 12 to 14 years old, and that is considered sex trafficking according to our federal government. And in our experience, the majority of the women who we serve in Tarrant County, who we've met with over 1,000 women since we started in 2012, the average age is 15. So all the women we serve, regardless of if they're considered prostitutes, according to their record, are victims of sex trafficking because they're performing commercial sex prior to the age of 18. So just so, because I'm going to use a lot of different words, but we meet with women who have a history of prostitution. We build relationships with them in hopes that when they get out of jail, that they will continue to meet with us and build relationships with us. So I'll be going into the Tarrant County Jail and meeting with women there. I also, again, serve on a treatment team for a probation program through a specialty court called RISE, which was started by Judge Brent Carr. And so there are 40 women in that program, all have a history of sexual exploitation, but also all have felony charges. So they're all looking at significant time in prison if they did not if they didn't get this opportunity, which is what's so great about the RISE program, is that Judge Carr saw these women as victims and not as perpetrators, and realizing that a lot of times sexual exploitation is cyclical. It's not necessarily their choice. And so he wanted to give them an out. But also these women have significant trauma starting in early childhood. They have drug addiction, they have prior other different mental illness and things like that. And so it took a holistic approach to walking alongside these women. So we have a core treatment team, including Salvation Army, MHMR, a variety of different other nonprofit organizations that work alongside probation, as well as just the justice system in general, to care for these women. And so I serve all of those women. Those women are in the program for 2 to 4 years. And so I do case management for them, and I help them kind of navigate life. I pair them with a trained advocate who will walk alongside them for 2 years. And then I get them connected to community resources. So at the net, where we call ourselves a safety net and a network. So we want to be a safety net for people who have experienced extreme trauma and just poverty in general, but we also want to be a network. So that means us partnering with other organizations, other businesses, other bodies in our city to help meet this woman where she's at and kind of give a holistic care. And so I do that. That looks like also me teaching support group once a week. So we have a weekly support group for women who have experienced sexual exploitation and trafficking. And I teach a class every week. And I also, and that's the glamorous stuff. So I do that on again, every single week. And then the foundational things are like being on the computer. So that means also budgeting my program, and making sure that we have, whenever anything that we spend, I take care of that. I also train our advocates. So we're working with very vulnerable populations. And so to become an advocate, you have to go through a lot of training and vetting prior to becoming an advocate. But then there's also continual training. So my job is to care for advocates and help set them up for success. And we have 65 advocates across all of our different areas of our programs. I plan events for our ladies. I don't have to fundraise anymore, praise the lamb, but I used to. I actually started, so going into entry positions, I'm the only full-time staff member who didn't start as an intern. So I was the only one who came outside of the organization. We have a few part-time people who did not intern, but all full-time staff, aside from myself, started as interns. And so an entry level would be our internship, which is very similar to what my job is. There is a combination of some glamorous to a combination of some very practical things that allow the glamorous things to happen. So for our homeless program, we have weekly bingo and bagels, weekly bingo and bagels, where we get to meet with our friends and we have breakfast together and we play bingo and just have a great time. But to exist in those relationships to be formed, we need to have bagels, we need to have bingo cards, we need to go on grocery trips. We need to set up our room, and our interns help with that, which doesn't seem glamorous, but it is the foundation that allows the actual work to be done. So the behind the scenes stuff seems tedious, but it's actually essential for the glamorous things to happen. So with jail outreach, for us to be able to meet with women in jail, interns help me organize our jail database with new ladies who are incarcerated from the list we get from the jail. They help write jail letters. They help me plan our recreational events, like going and doing bowling or things like that. But then they also get to go to jail. And then eventually too, you start out as an intern at the Net, you go and are a general intern, so you go and participate in all of the events that we have through our organization and all the different programs. But if you continue to be an intern over a couple of semesters, you can become a purchase intern. So if that's the case, you can attend our support group. You can also get privileges to come and assist me in the jail by helping me teach my class or observe me doing assessments for women who I meet in jail for our RISE program. So there's lots of different opportunities, but ultimately, starting by volunteering, like people said, and then starting in internships and getting that experience is the best way to start getting into nonprofit work.
Okay, and Amy, thank you.
Yeah, that was exciting. So the best way to describe my day is I do not work from home ever. We are essential. We are here, boots on the ground. When COVID happened, we made a very conscious decision to stop all of the volunteers coming into organization. We have a staff of 89. We have 25,000 volunteers a year. You can imagine the impact that had on our staff, who all of a sudden had to stop, pivot, and start doing things that we're not accustomed to doing. So usually I start my day in emergency food boxes in our volunteer center, and always trying to make sure that if I've got a box of spaghetti, that I pair it with a marinara sauce so that family gets a complete meal. I wear a lot of hats here as well. I'm not afraid to jump on the phone and answer the reception calls if she needs to step away and help a client that comes to the door seeking food assistance. But the majority of my day is spent forming strategic partnerships in the community. Hunger is a symptom of the root cause of poverty, and there's no way to end hunger without helping end poverty. So we connect a lot, do presentations and experiences with other organizations that are helping, such as the United Way and Catholic Charities. We do a lot of tours here, which has been interesting during COVID. Very limited tour groups and keeping social distance, but spend a lot of time just talking about advocacy efforts and ways to get involved in the food bank. I mentioned fundraising. That's always a hat that we wear. We're constantly going out and finding how can you donate your time, your talent, or your treasure. Entry-level positions here, we have a lot of interns as well. We're looking for opportunities. Our interns range from videographers, bloggers, photographers. We have finance interns, that people who have an accounting degree. We do not have a social services department, so we do get a lot of calls from social service organizations that want to intern here, and we don't offer that service, so I will educate you on that. Other internship opportunities for sure with our volunteer services when those come back online. So volunteering, we've all mentioned, that is the best way if you are passionate about a mission, a philanthropy, to get involved as a volunteer. Not only does it help that organization, but it helps you as an individual to learn what path you want to take. Are you a confident fundraiser, or do you want to be more behind the scenes doing a lot of that foundational work that's so important as well?
Hey, thank you much. And by the way, they served 60 million meals this last year. Imagine that, 60 million. What a great service to the Tarrant area. Technology in this, even your title, culture, people, and programs, that could be the title of a sociology course. So it's very exciting to hear what you're doing. Now, let's combine the last two topics and talk about skills and experience that you would recommend the students to gain if they're interested in the nonprofit sector, and then any advice you'd like to give the students. And we're going to start with you, Amy, since you were last on the last one.
The skill sets we look for are so varied. Like a couple of the other panelists have said, we have everything from forklift operators, drivers that have a commercial driver's license that are driving 53-foot refrigerated trucks. We have skill sets in accounting and marketing, communications, human resources, basically anything you want. You're looking at me here with my degree in fashion promotion, and I went into human resources without an emphasis in that. I will tell you that I learned the most about my skill from working, just getting out there and working. You know, the degree helps absolutely with your networking and your foundation, but having that hard work ethic is what I look for in the candidates. I look for passion. I look for accountability. Stability is helpful. So if you are passionate about ending hunger and you started in college as an intern or a volunteer, and you can share that story in the interview process, it gets you definite bonus points here. Just any type of skill you're passionate about, follow that, because that, as May said, will help you tremendously in your career path. And you had a part two. What was the second thing to share?
Your advice.
Advice is just to get involved. Get involved in your community. We need you as community trustees. You have a wonderful advantage of bleeding purple by being a Horned Frog, and that will open up your network here a lot. But get involved. Your voice matters. We need to hear your innovative ideas, your solutions, your experiences, and share those. Become an advocate for who you're serving. As soon as that's a big part of what we do is educating and providing statistics and stories. Sharing the story to the statistic is so vital, and that is my biggest advice: is don't sit complacent. Get involved.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to Ashley and then Jordan.
Yes, absolutely. So on the skills and experiences, I think you really have to look to make sure it's a cultural fit for you. In the nonprofit sector, organizations stand for something. And one of the glorious things about America is that we have organizations that stand for different things. And I often tell people, I'm not a professional fundraiser. I'm a fundraiser because I'm passionate about St. Jude's mission. You can't put me in any organization and I'll be as successful because I'm not as passionate about every organization. Now, there are other organizations I'm very passionate about as well. But I think that cultural fit is going to be the most important thing. You know, no matter what sector you're in, if you're in the fundraising sector, if you're in a support sector, if you're on the front lines like Jordan, you know, meeting with women of sexual and human trafficking, like, you have to have a drive to succeed. You're going to get a lot of no's, be it from a donor, be it from somebody who you're trying to help, be it from somebody you need help from. Like, you're going to get a lot of no's. And so you have to have that resilience and that drive to succeed, to overcome that, and just know that it's okay to get a no. Just keep moving. And be personable. You know, there's a saying, which I think most people in the nonprofit sector have heard, that people don't give to organizations, people give to people. If somebody didn't like me as much as they might like St. Jude, but I go and ask them for money, they're not going to give it to me, because if they don't like me. So you don't change who you are. Don't ever change who you are, but just be open and be respectful of people who have different values, and honestly get to know them. Someone said that earlier, now I'm forgetting who it was, but the moment you sit down, I think it was May, said the moment you sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone, you start to build a relationship, and you can respect each other's differences, but still be able to have a relationship with someone you may not align your beliefs with, and that's okay. That's, once again, that's what makes America who we are. And just my general advice is don't say no to opportunity. Not to say you have to say yes to everything, but there are going to be some things where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can, or they probably think someone else will do a better job. Don't let that hinder you. I think as women, especially, we're a panel full of women. Sorry, Keith. But I think the women in general do tend to, we say we have 5 of 10 qualities. So we think, well, we don't qualify, we're not going to apply. And don't do that. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, don't discount yourself and what you offer. Your perspective is important, and participate. You know, put your hand up and say, yeah, I want to be a part of that. Be it in your business where you're working, which I did see a question, somebody asked if we get paid, and yes, these are positions, and they come with a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, just like any other position does. But even if you're doing it as a volunteer or as an intern, unpaid intern, whatever it is, participate.
Thank you. Jordan?
Yeah, I think I love what you were saying, Ashley. I mean, number one, I think it's important to know your why. Nonprofit work is like gritty. It's definitely not, it's gritty. Regardless of what area you're in, you want to know your why. Like, what is the reason why you would want to get into nonprofit work? And then at that point, you can discover by getting involved, whether that be interning, volunteering. I love what Ashley said, by just saying yes to things, to decide what area you want to get involved in. So for example, when I was in college, don't recommend this for everybody, but I worked full-time at a residential treatment facility through ACH Child and Family Services. So I went to school Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday, I worked full-time at a residential treatment facility. Not because I like to not have a social life, but because I wanted experience. And I'm so grateful for the fact that I did that, because again, prior to working there, I thought I wanted to be a counselor, and I realized really quick I had boundary issues. Like, I realized that, especially when it came to kiddos, I had a very, very difficult time leaving work at work and being at home and not bringing work home with me. Really challenging, and I knew burnout was going to happen very quickly. I also, too, while I was in college, I worked at a research lab with rats and pigeons, studying learning psychology. Has nothing necessarily to seemingly do with what I'm doing right now, but I learned a lot about data collection. And that is super important when working at a nonprofit, because again, we function off of the donations of others and foundations and grants. And to get to get that money, we need to provide data. And so even things that seem like, man, that doesn't seem like the direction I want to go in, it's amazing how those experiences can apply to what you have in store in your job and your career. And then also too, things that you may thought you would like, you realize you don't like that much. And that's okay. Like things like fundraising. Fundraising is not my favorite thing to do. But like what Ashley was saying, I have no problem doing, I have no problem asking people for money when I'm something I'm passionate about. I'm not like the greatest person at it, but you learn and you do it. But the thing is, if you have your why, then everything kind of, it'll help direct your path, right? And so getting involved, using your time wisely, again, for us, it's experience means a lot. So that doesn't necessarily mean like you need to have experience working with victims of human trafficking, but like, did you spend time at Kinderfrogs? Like, are you spending your time working with, or did you go volunteer at Boys and Girls Club, or did you have an internship at Boys and Girls Club? Or what if did you utilize your social media skills to help your sorority with their philanthropy project? Because we have internships for social media, because for us, how we get our message across is through social media. And so maybe you're not someone who's ready to like go into the jail, but you have a gift and talent and you have a why, and you want to use that gift and talent for your why. So getting involved, like school is so important, and having that knowledge is so important, but having the knowledge as well as the experience makes you a very desirable candidate. But also not only for the hiring process, but for you to know exactly what you want to be doing and the exact area you want to be doing it. Maybe you don't want to be a frontline worker, but you love the executive administration side of it, being a visionary for the future for something like Tarrant Area Food Bank. Or like Ashley was saying, like, it's amazing how you think right now, I could never ask somebody for money, but when you have passion and a why, it is so easy to sit down across the table from somebody and be like, I'm going to tell you why it's important for you to be a part of what we're doing here by donating your gifts and your talents and your money. So know your why.
Okay, thank you. All right, and May.
Well, all three of the previous ladies all said something very similar to what Jordan just ended on, of that why and that passion. I think we all talked about that a little early on, and I, like you, have that very same thing. But I will tell you, nonprofit is a business. It's a business. We're paid. We have to do, we have to have goals. We have to report back, as Jordan said, to the foundations. What's our impact? They're not going to fund sister cities just to send high school students to Italy. Why are they going, and what are you accomplishing? We've been working with the Center for Nonprofit Management to do our impact study of how this changes a student's life and what it means for him or her in the future, as far as job expectations. So it's a business. So many nonprofits, I think, have that passion, and they get wrapped up in wanting to do more and more and more, and they neglect the fact that if they aren't out there raising the money, if they're not out there understanding the budget and where the money's going and how that matches up, they're going to fail. So every skill set you learn just about can be incorporated into a nonprofit, whether it's finance majors, business, technology, political science. We have a lot of political science interns in our office because we've got to deal with international culture. So you've got to understand that concept as well. So I think a lot of people have had, did I get asked to run this organization, and it was, number one, because I am a good fundraiser. I learned it early, and I have no problem like anybody else. It's not my favorite, but it's a challenge, and I love challenges, so I've never failed at raising money. But the other was that I understand the workings of this organization. I can read that budget and understand that, but I've got that passion as well. And the advice that goes along with that is be committed. Once you determine, this is it, give it your all. There are so many people out there looking for jobs. They're looking for entry level. And it used to be, if you had a college education, you were set. You are going to get a job at X amount of money. It's not like that anymore. And I just, all of you that are about to graduate, it's hard. So when you find that passion that you think you might be interested, I would say, give it that 120, 30%. Don't think, oh, if I don't like this in a little while, I'll move on to something else, because we can see that. It's the people that get into entry level positions that just want more and more, and they're willing to do anything. And you're like, these are people that are going to make this organization stronger. So that's who I look for when I'm hiring people, or how they've been volunteering in the community. I think several of you said about volunteer in the community. It doesn't have to be in the related mission of the organization you're applying for, but just the fact that you're out in the community. You want your community to be better, and you're willing to put the time and effort into it. And then always have integrity of what you say, you do. That's a big thing for me. You have to be honest with those you work with your donors, with the clients you serve. They pick up on that very quickly. This is not, you don't tell a story just to be telling a story. It's got to mean something to you. So those are my little nuggets of advice. I hope that will help you.
Okay, thank you so much. A lot of practical information, and I believe the students got a flavor of what it's like to work at a nonprofit today. And we're out of time as far as questions go, but maybe if you have a question, you can follow up through Kim or Kara, and she can get those questions to our panelists. And thank you very much for taking the time to share your knowledge and your expertise and your advice with the students. It was invaluable. And so I'll turn it back over to Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Whitworth, and thank you, panelists. You all have been amazing. And as the students have been putting in the chat box, they're just so appreciative for you taking time out of your busy days to speak with us and to share your passion, your why, and more information about each of your truly amazing organizations. So thank you again. We wish you all the best personally and with your organizations. Again, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.